so I'm going to walk around and kind of point here. So what used to happen is you guys would have an application period sometime in August, late July, early August, where you would submit an application for your projects that you wanted listed. The state had told you how much money you were going to get, and you listed out a group of projects that you wanted to use that money for. Okay, and then through that, the lifetime of that money, you could pick and choose what projects you wanted to do. Okay, that has remained the same, except now we are doing it through the PMRS system. Okay, so what ends up happening is NGDOT, the local aid group, will create you a project. It will be labeled something like this in PMRS that only your county has access to. So like this one in here is an example of Somerset. So Somerset has a project called County Main Project for 18 is your number, 2005 is the year. So this is 2005 funding year for your county. Okay, and in there, it will have however much money the state has allotted your county, okay? From there, we will give you a process, an application that you will fill out called the CAACF, which you fill out, and that's where you list your 10 projects. Okay, we've limited it to 10 projects now. Notice that most of the counties weren't even using that many, but some were submitting a lot more. It's a lot of paperwork for stuff that wasn't being used. Okay, so we give you a process that you will fill out your 10 or less. You don't have to fill out 10 if you don't want to. 10 or less projects that you want to use that funding for. Okay, it could also include previous year's projects. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so it will automatically also spawn you off a resolution. Okay, so you have to have your county board or whatever your governing body is called submit a resolution saying, yes, we agree that we want to do these 1, 2, 5, 10 projects, whatever it is. Okay. When these both are done, it now gives you a list of processes. So you've had 10, let's just say it's 10. You had 10 processes and our 10 projects on your list. It creates 10 processes in eBuilder. Okay. Those are how you kick off your project whenever you're ready. Okay, so they sit in your PM's or engineer's court, and whenever you're ready to start that project, whenever you're ready to go advertise and bid it, you kick off this project in the system, you complete this process, so you guys can do it whenever you want within that period of time, and it will create an actual project in PMRS. Okay, and that's where basically everything is housed, all your documentation for that project. It allocates funds to the project at that point in time. So if you think you needed 1.5 million, let's just say you had a $10 million funding allocation, it will, and you say this project's going to cost us $1.5 million. It takes $10 million out of this funding source, your main project, and it puts them on, you know, this is your list, and let's say this is the one you guys want to do, is this Somerset roadway. It's going to take money from the big project, basically it's just a bank account, and it adds it to your child project, to your actual construction project. Okay. From there, it goes into the LAMP processes, which is where you give us what your bids were. It creates a commitment, which is your contract. It then will automatically spawn the invoice process once this has been completed, where we will pay you the 100% amount of money from the commitment. So whatever the construction bid was, we pay that out automatically, just like we're doing now. It's just all monitored through a system and instead of through Excel, et cetera. And then at the end, any money that's left over for some reason will be transferred back to either your main project or any other project you have in the system. Okay, so basically we tell you your allotment, you tell us your projects. When you're ready, you create your construction projects as needed. It allocates money to those projects that you've created. You create a commitment with the contractor. We pay you that amount of money, the 100% value. When you're done, if there's any money left over, you can move that money back to the main project to be then dispersed to others, or you can move that money to other child projects that may have increased in cost during that time. And this is through these 5 processes. Any questions so far? Yes. So when you estimate basically from the engineer's estimate, it will say, let's say you think you need 1.5 million, and then so it allocates 1.5 million. And then in your LAMP process, maybe your bid came in at 1.4. We'll pay you the 1.4, not the 1.5. But maybe your bid came in higher, then you would be able to allocate additional funding if needed. Any other questions about basically the workflow? I know this isn't too detailed. It's just kind of telling you what the processes are that we're going through.
Jacob, can you please repeat the question if it's asked in-house, because it's not heard online?
Yes, I can. So the question was,
thank you.
The question was, when we create the construction project, does it allocate what was the bidded amount, or does it allocate what the estimate was? And it was the estimate that the engineer had put in at the beginning of the process that is what's allocated. Anybody who's not muted, could you please mute yourself? Because it's getting a lot of reverb in the room here. Okay, it looks like everybody's following this. Okay, can you, yeah, go. I don't know if the next one I need to be up here or not. I just wanted to point. Okay, so this is your application. So like I said, the main ATP funding project is created annually and will create the CAACF workflow. Okay, so this is where your ATP application, agreement and certification of funds, and your project list is. Okay, so you have to basically, we have to certify the funds, which is an internal process. You guys give us a project list. This is your application, just to say what you want to construct with this money. Okay, the construction project list is limited to 10 projects. Please only add the projects that you think you're going to really be starting with this money. You can always add more later through an ATP modification. And any additional projects needed to be added would be added through your ATP mod in the CACP process. Okay, and there's a lot of acronyms. If 10 projects have already been submitted, and this is where it's sometimes better not to submit 10 projects. So if you've submitted 10 already, and then you don't want to do 2 of those and you want to replace it with something else, you have to replace a project with another project. So it's easier to submit 8 and then find 2 more than it is to submit 10, kill off 2, and then create 2 more. That's why we're asking, if you know you want to do these 5, submit these 5. If you know you're going to do 8, submit 8. Don't just submit 10 to submit 10. Submit what you really think you're going to use the money for, and then we will create the new ones for you, and you can go in and submit those yourself. It's just much easier on the system and you guys to submit what you want and then add additional later. Okay. So this is where we get into this piece, and this has been confusing, and I get it. It was confusing to me the first time I walked through it. So projects created in a previous year. Okay, that does not mean it was just on your list in a previous year. It means you actually completed the CACPC process, meaning you've actually started the process, started the project, and it has been allocated funds. Okay, so that's this. This is your ATP list. Okay, so there's 5 projects in here. So none of these were created in a previous year, meaning it's going to kick off a CACP that will allocate funds. If it's already been, if it was started in a previous year, we will add additional funds, but it's 2 separate ways of adding funds to the project. So that's where we have this yes/no question. If you have questions about it, please contact a PM so they can kind of help you through that instead of just picking yes or no. Just because it does significantly impact how the money is allocated to the project, and we don't want to create 2 projects in the system and then have to delete one, remove stuff. It's just much easier if we end up picking yes or no correctly at the beginning. Okay, so then the approved ATP list, when completed, will automatically create the construction process, the CACPC, from the ATP list, which allows you to kick off the projects at your convenience. It can sit there for 1 day and you can start your process if you're already ready to go. It could sit there for, I think it's up to 3 years when you have to kick them off. So you can kick those off at your convenience once your list has been approved. Okay, any questions about the CAACF? Okay, so the county aid resolution. So this is going to be automatically spawned off. It's there hasn't been too many questions about this, but it's automatically happens. So we just wanted to mention it. The CARES is the workflow that will automatically spawn. This is where you will fill in your resolution. It has to be completed before your CAACF can be completed. So we have to have the resolution stating that the board enters in an agreement with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for these projects. Your project list, your ATP list must be included. So it has to have at least the amount of projects on your ATP list in there. So you have to have, so if you submitted 5, we need those 5 on your resolution. And then if you add projects to your ATP list, it will also create a new CARES process. So you can add that to either your existing resolution if you want to do an amendment to your resolution, or you can pass a new resolution. That's up to you and your board how you want to do that. But you will have to submit a revised or updated or new resolution with the additional projects that you're doing through your ATP mod. Any questions about that? And if I'm talking too fast, slow me down because I tend to talk fast. Okay, so the construction project creation and modification. Okay, so the CACPC does 2 things. It's kicked off from your list and it allows you to create projects whenever you want. Okay, from your list. It also allows you to modify your ATP list. Okay, so you don't do the CAACF, you just do the CACPC. So we've already given you the money, we've allocated the funding, it's already yours. We just need you guys to kick off the construction projects as you want to do them. Or if you want to add a new project or replace an existing or replace a project on your list, you use the CACPC. Okay, so as it says, example, you had 5 new projects submitted in the CACF, it will automatically create 5 individual CACP construction processes in your main project. That's where you go. You go into your main project for that year to find them. These will also be in your home screen court. So for all of you that have used PMRS, you have a home screen where it lists out what's in your court, which is basically work you have available to do or work you can do or work you're supposed to be doing, however you want to look at it. You can always find these in the home court. You don't have to go to the main project. You can just find them in your court. It'll say the name of the project that you want and the year. Okay. These processes are how you create and fund your construction project. So you said it allocates money from the main funding pot, main project, into your construction project when you kick it off. Okay, so it's just taking it from one bank account and moving it over to the construction. The funding from the main ATP project will automatically reallocate to each construction process at the completion of the CACP, as regardless of it's a mod or an initial ATP, an ATP listed project. So that's why we use the CACP for both of them, because we're allocating funding to the construction projects. The CACP process contains ATP mod option to move funds and or replace a project for a different one. Okay, like I said, you can have one in there and replace it. It's just much easier to have lines left over because you only get 10. So if you have 10 already, you're going to have to replace one. Okay, it's just more to type in. It's just more information. So if you don't have one, don't put it in there. And I know I'm hitting that hard because it's so much easier to not do it that way. So if you need the modification, you create it from the CACP process on the main ATP funding project. That should be the only place you can get to it. But you always do it from the main. And then the ATP mod option will spawn the CARES, which again is giving you your resolution so that you can say, yes, our board approves that we're going to use funding from the state to do this project. Okay, pretty pretty self-explanatory on that one, but any questions about what you use CACP for or what it does? Okay, so it basically just allows you to create your project, your construction project, and fund that project, or it allows you to add a new project to your ATP list and fund that project from your main funding source. Okay, so the local aid management process. Okay, so initiate LAMP for each construction project to award the contract. So this is where you submit your PS&E, you submit your bids, you choose your bids, and then you basically create the contract with the contractor. We just have to do that in the system so that we know how much money it costs, and the system can monitor that and pay it out, and we can report on it. It's basically a way for us to create something that we can report on. We're working on this piece here where you won't be able to create LAMP on the main county project, but that's been an issue in the past where people are going into the main county project and for whatever reason creating LAMP there. I think I found a solution to that. So in a week, most likely you won't be able to do that anymore. But if you create a project next week, do not use LAMP on the main county project. And then, as said earlier, the approved LAMP workflow. So basically, once you have a commitment, we're going to automatically pay you that 100%. And so it will automatically spawn the LAINV process, which is the local aid invoice process, and pay you your money for that construction project based on the commitment value. Okay, so the local aid invoice approval process. So full state sharing, part of a commitment contract will be paid if funds allow. So if you don't have enough money left over, so let's say you're at project number 8 and you had, we're at $9.5 million spent out of your $10 million allocation, and you have a $10 million, and you have a project that's $1 million. Okay, so we're 500,000 short. Okay, we'll pay you the 500,000. Then you need to go to another year's. So you can either get your 500,000 and be happy and use another 500,000 of your money to pay it, or you can go to another project year that you have your ATP listed on. This is why that yes, no is important, and take money from that main project and use the budget transfer process, which we're going to talk about in a second, to move money over from, let's say we're in 2005, let's say now you're in 2006, you've got extra money in your 2006 to complete this project. You can move money from your 2006 main funding pot over to your 2005 project that was listed on your ATP. Okay, so it all works the same way. It's just we're using processes to do it instead of emails, emails within the system. Okay. So again, the process will stay, and then once it's paid to you, it's going to stay in the LPA hold for closeout step. The reason for that is there could be change orders up or down. Okay, so basically when it's held for closeout, when we're completed and we know the full cost of the project, so once you've got your contractor certification that there's no more, or a final invoice, you will say, okay, this is what our construction cost was. And if that money is less than the actual commitment was up front, which can happen sometimes, it's going to move money back to we're going to move money back to your ATP main project. So then you can use that money again. Okay, because it's already been paid to you. We just need to track that it wasn't all paid to this project. It's going to be paid to another project. Just that's for internal reporting. Okay, at the closeout, you're going to need your CFO approval, your engineer certificate of completion, along with any additional closeout documents and the state sharing amount paid to contractor. Like I said, that's so that we can know exactly how much money was paid to the contractor. If it's less than what we paid you, that's fine. It's not an issue. We just need to track that, move the money somewhere else so we know that money was used on project X instead of project Y. If there is no money left, that's it. The project's just closed out. So if you had a contract for 1.5 million and you spent 1.5 million and we paid you 1.5 million, great, perfect. We just move on and we close the project out. Any questions about that? This is usually the one that, because this is where we're moving money around at closeout. So I kind of figured there might be a question here too, but if not, yep.
So in the Thank you. So in the past, it's been where we're paid 75% upfront, and then during a second invoice, we either get the 25% or whatever that difference is. Is that no longer the case, and we're getting a full payment upfront?
Yeah, that changed several years ago where we don't do 75% for a county aid project. That's only for our other state funded programs that you may be eligible for, like Safe Streets to Transit, your local bridge, your local freight if you received one of those grants. All right, so county aid is still just 100%. Yep.
Okay, any other questions?
Can money be moved from either an advance county aid or a previous county aid? So let's say we're looking at county aid 2021, can money from 2019 or 2020 or 2022 be moved to 2021 if needed?
Yeah, yes. So the only caveat to that is it has to be on the ATP list, correct? Right. So if you have it on if you had a 2019 project, if you're on your ATP list, you had that 2020 project, so you put it on your list every year, 2020 or 2019, 2020, 2021, it's on there because it's been listed and approved. You can use funding from any year that is on the list, which is also why, again, you can modify your ATP through the CACP process. So if it even wasn't on there, you can go in as long as you have a project left, right? So if you already did 10 projects, then that would be more of a, you're gonna have to get permission or whatever to do that. In that case, it's you move money somewhere else typically. But the answer is yes, as long as it's on an ATP list or you do a ATP mod, you can move the money to any project that's been approved for any year, as long as the money hasn't expired, right? Yes.
Originally it was at request, you can move it to 15 projects. Is that still the case, or are we capped at 10?
That question. Let one of you two answer that question. That's a program question, not a software question.
No. I would say if there's a special circumstance, reach out to, your district office and we'll discuss it internally.
So I have a general question. Is there a place we can upload the doctor's bill when I get those notifications that says it has been escalated to you? It kind of gives me the palpitations and I go looking for a doctor. Can we change that verbiage to say something along the lines that was in somebody else's court? Because it really, I have to run to Joe every time I receive that escalation notice and, I get 10 of them in a week. It really, that verbiage, could we kindly modify it?
Clearly, we're not changing the verbiage because it works.
And even if the assistant commissioner said so, the software won't let me. So you can, and we trained the internal folks on this, you can change your notifications to only receive them once a day. So instead of receiving 10 escalations a day, you can only get one. And so you just have, a mild heart attack at one point instead of 5 a day. So. Okay, I think there's a couple more slides. Okay, so the LABT. So this is the, or was another question? Question online, okay.
What happens if the initial payment voucher ends up being more than the final as built costs for a project within the ATP?
So if the final cost is less than the commitment, two things will need to happen. One, you will create a change order in the system to reduce the amount of the commitment down to the actual cost. So let's say it was 1.5 is what we initially had the commitment at, and it came into $1,400,697 or something like that, right? Okay, so you would reduce your commitment by that difference to the amount.
Sorry to interrupt. I think it's the other way. The question was if there's the construction cost is above what has been
Oh,
previously the committed for. So
sorry, wrong way. So if the do both. Okay, so okay, we'll keep on the path that I was on. So if the construction cost is less than, you will create a change order in the system, and it will not let you move forward until it's done. So it says, is the invoice amount the same as the construction cost? So you have to type in what your actual construction cost is. If those numbers don't match, it says, hey, you can't move forward, and it will ask you to go create a change order, okay, to reduce the cost. Or reduce the commitment so that the commitment and the actual money paid to the contractor, not to you, because you already paid that 1.5 million. The difference to the contractor will be the same. The invoice and the commitment are the same. That's just for tracking purposes, know how much the actual construction projects cost. Okay. So that's where we get into this LABT closeout piece. So basically what it does is at the end of that project, it will kick off an LABT, and it will automatically know what the difference is between what we paid you and what your construction costs were, because it's math and we can do math in the system very easily. So then it's going to kick off an LABT, and it will ask you, where do you want to put this money? Okay, because we've paid you the money, and that's fine. But now we need to know, where do you want to put it back to? Are you putting it to a construction project that you already have in place that you know is going to cost more money? Or are you going to put it back in your main funding pot and then go pull it out and put it on a project this year, a project next year, a project in 3 years? Okay, as long as it's within the funding window for, you can only keep the funding open so long. As long as it's within that funding window, you can move the money to any project you want. Now, if the construction costs more, at some point, you will probably have done a change order because you know that the contractor came back and said, okay, it's going to cost you an extra $150,000 to remove this rock that we found while you're putting in this road, okay, or whatever it is. So at that point, you will do a commitment change, a change order to up the amount of your commitment. So we went from 1.5 million to now we're at 1.65 million, okay? Then you can submit a partial invoice. So the LAINV is kicked off automatically from LAMP, but if you need to get paid for an additional cost, you will go through the change order process, that all gets approved. You will then submit a partial invoice for the amount above the original commitment. Okay, so that way you can grab an extra 150,000. You can pick wherever you want to move that money from. So we'll have to do that through a LABT. You have to move basically you move the money first from here to there, so we know you have the money. Then we up the commitment, just because that's the way the system works. You have to have the money to then create a commitment to then be paid. Okay, so it's move the money from wherever you want. We don't care where you're moving it from, as long as it's on the ATP list. Move it to the project. Do a change order to up the commitment value, just like you would in most cases, and then submit a partial invoice using the same process, LAINV. You just say, what kind is this? It's a partial. You can do as many partials as you want, and then you're paying on the commitment the additional money, and that way it's all tracked in the system. So we moved it from Maine or wherever to the project. We up the commitment. We pay you the additional money. Does that answer the question that was online? Okay, so we haven't got to this slide yet, and we kind of just did, but this is used to transfer funds and or close out the process, the LABT. So like I said, at the end of the project, this will automatically be kicked off when a project is closed, okay? And it knows if there's any money left over, it will ask you, where do you want to move this money? You can pick one project. We do not have the ability in the system to do more than one project. This is actually custom built for this specific process. It was built with the ability to move it to one project. Okay, so you can pick any project, again, that's already been created in the system and move your money through. Okay. There's basically 3 scenarios. If all funding was spent on the construction project, the project is just closed, right? So we had 0 money to transfer, project's closed. If there's funds remaining on the construction project to close out, you will reallocate funds to the main project. Okay. If funds remaining on the ATP main, and again, this is if you kicked it off yourself, if funds remaining on the ATP main, you can reallocate funds to another year or construction project that must be created already. Okay, so if the project doesn't exist, I can't move money to it. It's pretty self-explanatory, but people ask the question all the time. You have to have a project in the system, which means it should be on some ATP list at least. It's supposed to be on the one that the funding's on, but it has to be in the system. Okay, this is another important line. County aid funds can be moved to bridge projects, but bridge funding cannot be moved to county aid projects. So your county aid funds can be moved to a bridge project as long as it's on your ATP, but you can't move bridge money that's directly for bridges to any other county aid project, even if it's in the system. Okay, so when you go try to do that, it will act like it's going to let you do that, but the PM's going to say, you can't do this, and they're going to kick it back to you. Okay, so it may let you do it, but the PM's going to say no. Okay, we don't have a way to prevent that. You can always kick off the LABT from the project. You always kick off LABT from the project giving funds. Okay, so a lot of times you're going to kick it off from the main funding project, but you can also kick it off from the child project if you know you're going to need those funds on there. But typically you're going to kick it off from the main project, not the child, because the child at closeout is automatically going to kick this off and move money to wherever it needs to go or close out the project. Yes, question. Hold on. Let me.
I just want to clarify for the second last bullet item about moving county funds to bridge projects. You mean moving county funds to local bridge grant funds? Yeah. Okay. All right. And then a future question I'll have is, I like with the county aid, there's a list of up to 10 projects and all for the one total grant amount. Can we, for the local bridge, have the same type thing where we list 3 or 4 bridge projects with the one total amount instead of separating them out by, historically, for local bridge, say it's a $3 million grant, and we have, say, 3 culverts. We have to list each culvert individually in that dollar amount, say $1 million a pop. And if those bridges go under or over, I have to then coordinate with the local district to move things around. But it's an easier process if it's like this with county aid, that we can move it easier.
All right, so the way the local bridge program works is each project that you apply for, so up to 5, is reviewed and approved individually. So they are individual projects. So that's why we're not creating an ATP of local bridge projects for you to move the money throughout. So if you ever had to transfer funds in the local bridge program, you do have to go through a justification purpose, even if it exists elsewhere within the system, because we don't do those reviews in local aid. They get submitted to our structures review, who are heavily involved in the program, especially the review of the structures that you are requesting to get.
I guess my concern is that if the structures group and DOT is okay with the 3 or 4 bridge projects, at that point, they're all approved already. So why does it matter to predetermine what the dollar amount is, that we can't just do like county aid and just move money around within those projects? Otherwise, I'm trying to nail down, for 2024, what the project's going to be for next year, and the construction dollars might be off by 200,000, and then I'm going back and forth where the process of county aid is simplified, where, as long as the projects are pre-approved, I don't see why we can't do like county aid.
It's just the way the programs are set up, right? I know it seems like the ease of just shifting the money one place or another, but we do track. So each project in the local bridge program is its own project. So we are tracking individual projects through that program, despite the amount, the grant amount that you get. So applying and moving those funds appropriately allows us to appropriately follow that project and through the approval process. Even though it was previously approved, we do go through a review process internally. Structures reviewing it, still the applicability of that, the amount that it's requested or that was previously given, and the amount that you need to move for that project.
Yeah, I mean, I think in theory it could work, but we'd have to look at it internally to see because they do look at eligible costs as well. So that's one of the functions, because we're not going to pay for roadway stuff, even though you might have like a bigger project in there where you're doing ditches a certain length or whatever. So I think we just kind of think that through a little bit instead of giving you a hard and fast answer right now. If they approve the projects like we do here in the ATPs, I think what they get into sometimes is allocating how much they believe funding should go to each project. And that's like one of the part of their review. And, maybe it would be better to, let you decide where you want to put your money. So that, I mean, just, because we're working with another group, there's a certain amount of autonomy they have in selecting the projects or approving the projects and how much should go to them based on if it's structurally deficient, is it scale critical. So I think we'll discuss it internally and see if that might be an option.
So the reason why you can't do that, well, why it would be hard to get past that, because we are approving each project individually. You're not creating an ATP. So even though it was previously approved, we're not going to get into, that then just starts opening it up to for 2025. You're just putting an ATP and you're not breaking down the engineer's estimate that's required for that bridge looking forward, in those next couple of years. If you start allowing just a transfer of funds, then, again, we're not tracking and have an understanding of what is going to be completed for that individual project. Microphone. This is why we're not going hybrid.
I guess my concern on the smaller projects where we think that we estimate to be $1.2 million, and then structures group looks at it and kind of agrees, 1.2, big comes at 1.4. Then I gotta scramble around $200,000 on county money, or I have to go through the districts to say, hey, can I get more money? Where I have the other projects that not awarded, I can pull from there. That's my concern, is like, I can't nail down the bid amount until after the project's been approved and the dollar amount's been approved. That's my concern, is like where I'm off by, because obviously when we put in for 24 and the bids doesn't go out to bid until 25, prices go up and down, both directions. I'm just concerned that like when I'm off by a significant amount, I can't cover that with county money.
Sure. Yeah, and we understand that. However, if now you're pulling $200,000 for that other for that other bridge, now next year you're applying for that same bridge again. Structures already thinks that, out of the $500,000 you're going to give for that structure, now it's down to 300, but you're still asking for the same one. Internally for us, we will not be able to. Well, now we're trying to figure out where all this money went instead of pulling it one way or another. I understand it might be a little bit of a hurdle to get that extra $200,000. Whether it's through your ATP or applying it for the next year's funding. I know that making that estimate and getting those funds approved for that individual project, looking into the future and what cost would be when it's finally designed and it's out for bid. But, in the long run, the system that we have set up is the way, we're going to move forward with it.
So as to the legislation, I mean, it doesn't say a lot other than to remove the most structurally deficient bridges off the list. And that's the main goal of the program, is to do that. So, a lot goes into making sure that, the counties are submitting the projects, and, we've tried to ease the pain there because there's a lot of caveats to that. But I think we can have a conversation internally again, just to see if that might be something that could work.
Then you already shot one down, so I'm going to try another one. Would it be as easy as simply knowing what items are not being participated, and if the cost of the structural or the participating cost goes up, we can simply say, all right, this went up, so here's our justification for it. It's okay, fine, you're not going to pay for the road every bridge has a road component to it, whether it be 50 feet or 100 feet. But beyond that, I can understand you don't want to pay for 200, 300, 500 feet. Totally understood. But if part of the approval is we're only paying for these items and the only excluded item, which is, it could be police, it could be right away, whatever it is. If we know that and we upload that information to you, then it should be a matter of simply saying, okay, there's logic here. These items went up. Here's the money. And let us worry about what we're going to do on the next year.
So you want sharing items approved prior during the approval of the project. Yeah, but we still run into that problem of being able to track those funds of what project came off of in the already created project. I like your idea of, or Sonny just committed everyone to putting detailed engineer's estimate at the time of application, which is what we asked for. So you can thank him. Yes, but we're not treating the local bridge program is not treated the same way as having an ATP. It doesn't follow the same regulations. We are approving on a per project basis, and that's the way we're looking at it. Like, this project was approved for this amount, despite the bridge items that were previously approved, because most likely they are going to be, especially if it's a bridge item. And then being able to track those funds of where they go, because there's actually a limitation on your funds if you don't award it within 36 months, but if you are under the construction costs, a time limit of where you can transfer those funds to, right? So it's our ability to be able, to project manage each one of these bridges, structures within each individual for your fiscal year's program. Yeah, so we really need to treat local bridge completely different than county aid, because county aid runs under a whole set of different regulations and how we manage it. It's not an ATP, and even though I understand it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. In the legislation, the ATP is prescribed how to do it exactly, the formula, everything. We developed the local bridge formula in conjunction with our bridge folks. So they have to weigh in on how it should be done. So again, I think we would, we have bi-weekly meetings with them now on the program. Yeah. So we can address that to them and just say, hey, what do you think about that? Obviously they work in a different world over there, and they're very, very strict about how they see this program. So we certainly could, broach that and see how they feel about being a little more flexible with the funds and allowing the counties to decide. Okay. We could, we can discuss it. I mean, we may disagree at the end on how we're going to do it, but I think it's something like we could think. I don't think we're constrained with the language in the legislation, but it's got to work for bridge. It's got to work for us, and it's got to work for you. So
if bid comes in higher than the commitment, do we need to request a change order now, or can we wait until after construction is complete in case the project goes over the bid amount?
Okay, per the system, you would only be able to put in up to the amount of the budget on your commitment. So if you wanted to be paid for the full amount right then, you would need to do a budget transfer to move money from some project or the main project over. Then you would be able to up the commitment to the amount. I don't believe there's any issues with you guys having them transfer money over for the commitment. You don't need to change order at that point because there's not a change order. It's just a bid. So you would move the money over. You would put in your commitment for the amount of the construction contract, and you would be paid the full thing. If you didn't want to do that up front, you could always wait till later and do a budget transfer, a change order, and then a partial invoice. There's two ways to do it.
Well, yeah, that'd be for county aid versus local bridge is where it's 75 and then final costs. So it all depends on the type of funding that you would be, well, this scenario exists. So then for your change order process, however you normally would proceed within your county because you're going through what county council to get to change order and all that. So however you would normally proceed through the county would be probably the way you'd go. How many 6-month extensions can be granted with the local bridge fund? 1. As per the regulations, we only allow 1 6-month extension. What is meant by construction project closeout to be completed within 3 years of acceptance? What is meant by construction project closeout?
I said it incorrect. I said that the construction project had to be closed out.
Oh, yeah.
That is
Sorry.
for the awarded the project, I believe, Kyle.
You have, 36 months from grant announcement to expend your county aid allotment. So July 31st, which coming up real soon, will be your 6-month reminder for your 2021 funds. So your entire county allotment must be expended for the 7/31. All right. Question over here. And is this program specific or is this PMRS specific?
Oh, this is PMRS.
All right, then we'll do that because any more specific, we have structures here that can also help us out with that, but we'll take that because of time on the presentation because I've got some slides left.
So the general question is, we're talking about county aid and all these processes for county aid. Is this the similar process to transfer funds for local bridge? Or is there a process coming for that? How would we, to the question previously asked, how would we in the system ask to move money between local bridge projects?
Yeah, so within local bridge, you can transfer funds. So if you're applying for, bridge in consecutive years because it's 10 million, you only get 3.5 a year, you can apply and then budget transfer for those projects. You would have to coordinate with your district office in doing so.
So it's the same process. It's the LABT. It's the only process we have that transfers, but it can transfer from any giving project to any receiving project. Okay, the checks and balances here is your PM is going to tell you whether you can do that or not based on, because like I said, if you try to transfer bridge for some reason to a county aid project, they're going to look at it and be like, no, you can't do that. Okay, or same thing, if you're trying to go from bridge to bridge and you haven't got your approval yet, they're not going to let you do it. So the system technically will let you transfer from any project you have to any other project you have. The PM is going to be the one that tells you, no, you can't do that. And they're going to avoid the process until the proper CACP has been done to modify it, or you've gotten approval from structural to do your bridge transfer. So it's all the same process. And then one last slide, I think. So this is the process summary in order, and it's just listed out in words instead of in a picture. So CACF is your solicitation letter and ATP application list. So that's what you guys are doing there. You're receiving your solicitation letter for how much funding you're receiving. You're giving us your ATP application list. That's what you guys are doing on the first in the CAACF. In CARES, you're giving us a resolution for your projects, whether that's 1, 5, or 10. Okay. Your CACP is the creation of your construction project and the funding of that new project. LAMP is your construction project awards. That's where you submit the bids and the bid package. And you guys will get this slide, so you guys don't have to take pictures if you don't want to. But that's where you get your construction project award. What we create in eBuilder is the commitment, okay, in PMRS. And LAINV, this is where the invoice is paid to the county by project. This is the same process you use for Municipal aid and county aid, the difference is you get 75% on municipal, you get 100% on county. And then the LABT is used to transfer funds from an existing project to an existing project. That's basically in a quick slide, what each process does. Obviously, there's a whole lot behind that, but that's what, for all intents and purposes, this is what you guys are seeing or what it does for you specifically. And then because, you know, acronyms, we actually listed out what all these things actually mean here. What it stands for. So it's County Aid Application Certification of Funds is CACF. CARES is County Aid Resolution Submission. County Aid Construction Project Creation, CACPC. Local Aid Management Process, LAMP. Local Aid Invoice Approval, LAINV. And the Local Aid Budget Transfer is LABT. So they all kind of, you know, we're super creative in our naming of these processes. Well, there's two that are close because we have LAINS, which is the inspection process, which is LAINS. So there's a couple that are real close. Okay, and that's it. We did it in almost exactly an hour. I'm impressed.
Well, are there any questions PMRS specific while we have Jacob?
Why does PMRS not automatically spawn subsequent processes within the construction phase of a project? So we start the construction kickoff, and then when we finish construction kickoff, why does it not automatically spawn into material questionnaire, local aid inspection? We have to just take the action ourselves, which isn't a problem, but we're all kind of fumbling our way through that process, and there's no flow path diagram showing us that process.
So when we initially built it 4 years ago, that came up. So the answer is it can. We don't. It's kind of a question of, did we want it to? There were reasons, and I don't remember. I have notes from years ago that said this, but it's been 4 years since I built it. It could, if that's what everyone agreed wanted, because the problem is I can't say, okay, well, you guys want it to spawn, but these other municipalities don't. So it's more a matter of, if the users end up saying, and this is why they have a user meeting and a tech team meeting all the time, is if that's what you guys want and it makes sense, the system can do it. Like it automatically, like I said, it automatically spawns the invoice process when LAMP is done, because we know that as soon as we're done with LAMP and we have a commitment, y'all want your money. And I don't blame you. So it's just a matter of, there was some questions that did come up then and why certain things spawn and why others don't. The answer is, if it makes chronological sense and the users want that, we can set it up that way. But so that's a great question. But the answer is it could.
But I'll counter that. The reason why it also can is because if you're doing the kickoff, you're also at the same time doing the materials questionnaire, right? So things can happen concurrently. So we're not forcing the system to complete one thing for the other to start, right? So there are actions or inputs in each process that may be required. So if you are not entering everything in there and the next portion is the spawning and we're not getting what we need and you're going out to construction, man, we don't have the material questionnaire yet. So that's part of the reason why things aren't automatically spawning. Where we can, we did, but for the other processes, wow, it just didn't work in the structure and the setup of our already existing local aid program and bringing it into PMRS.
And he knows better how the system, like what you guys need process to process wise. I just know that the system do these things. But again, like I said, 3 years ago, we walked all through this, and anything we could spawn on, anything we thought needed to be either concurrent or didn't make sense, because we have to have this information before you get to this. we did it. Anyway, any other questions on PMRS, the system? Got a couple more questions.
I know the expenditure reports, when we did them this year, they're completely different than the Excel spreadsheet. I was just wondering why. Okay.
Let's table that one for now.
All right, so then I have another one.
Okay.
When we do the, I guess, the material questionnaire and all that other stuff, we get to the cores. It asks the questions, are you doing cores or you're doing a waiver? You say we're doing cores, then you submit it. Then it comes back to you. So it says, okay, now attach the cores. Why can't I just say we're doing cores, here are the cores, and submit it? Like, I feel like there's some extra steps that aren't really necessary. That being one of
I'd have to look at it.
Yeah, I guess for when during the coring, the county's gonna have to most likely core their projects. When we built the system as the process, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also we're still using the same process for municipal aid projects where they may not. So we do have to ask that question up front if they will be taking cores, and that's why I know why there is a little bit of back and forth. It's one of those instances where we're, trying to fit all our different processes into one system, and at times, and this being one of them, there is a slightly extra effort on your part.
I can tell you why, because I used to work for the company that implemented the system. At the time, the scope did not allow to implement a second process. So the county aid process and the municipal aid process, like Kyle just said, are the same. If that's a massive problem, there's no reason that another process couldn't be built later. But at the time the system was implemented, the structure of the contract, just like you guys know, the contractor is going to charge you more money to do this, that, the other, right? It was not in the contract, because I helped do this, to build that additional process. So they used a process they had to fit in the system. Now in the future, again, if it becomes a problem, there's no reason the system can't be updated, but that's probably the most relevant reason why.
Yeah, this was a huge undertaking. We did it in phases, so, part of the reason. Where was the next question?
Has it been decided in PMRS how to claim the 1999 bridge funds that were?
I will address that in our updates. That's just so we can move Jacob on and move the meeting along, because we have some SMEs here for questions as well. So are there any other questions, PMR specific, for Jacob? If not, we will sign off on our teams to give Jacob a round of applause.